the place you need to get to. That remains. Here, there. One step, Rome is there, but this step is here, and this step is more important. Whenever you see any work of quality that's been made by a human being, it means some attention must have gone into it, some human attention. Somewhere there must have been someone who did not reduce the moment in which that was being made to a means to an end, where it gave. So you have works of art that have that quality, handicraft, things made by artisans in the original way, not under stress of having to produce, because attention is also loving care. Another aspect of attention is whatever you give attention to, there is a loving care that flows into the doing. So if you give attention to a human being that comes into the now, the field of now, and this is so beautiful, to give each human being that comes into your field of vision to you with this or that demand or question or whatever it may be, give them full and complete attention. That doesn't mean you get drawn into their story. You don't give attention necessarily to their mind stream and energize that. You simply give attention. There's a spaciousness. There is the awareness, the current of awareness flows into the looking. The same way you look at a tree, you hold, and that is beautiful. So see how things work in that new way. And observe, if you can find anybody who is present in doing something, observe them. It's wonderful to watch somebody at work in that way. And it won't really be perceived as work by them. It's joyful. Here's this one question that has appeared about 10 times in different forms. How would you suggest imparting these teachings to children? Here's this one question that has appeared about 10 times in different forms. How would you suggest imparting these teachings to children? I assume that either you live with children, or that you work with children, or that you may have the desire perhaps to write a book for children, whatever. If you live with children or work with children, then of course primary in imparting the teachings to children is not through words, but through living the teaching. Especially applies if you have children at home. If you live presence, if you embody living presence, then they will catch it from you. And you don't need to say that much, but there may be moments when they are receptive, and perhaps a word or two may come out of your mouth pointing to presence, because the children live in a culture that knows as yet nothing of presence. It is likely that they go to a school that is dominated by nervous mind energy, unless you have chosen already a relatively conscious school for them. They do exist here and there. But if not, if they are still part of the mainstream culture, then in a way you need to counteract that at home. That otherwise they would be very nervous children, because school is making them tense, stressed, and nervous. So most homes lack presence, and when you go in there you see in many cases it's a madhouse. It's your job to bring in presence. And again, we come back now to what we just spoke of in the previous question. Giving your children your fullest attention is the greatest gift. Many parents these days never listen to their children because they have that's the next thing already that they need to do, and they are busy anyway. How was school? Oh, okay. And what do you have to do now? Okay. Never, when in the listening, it doesn't matter so much what the children are telling you. What matters is that the space that arises as you listen. The spacious presence that arises as you listen to the child. Giving them space to be. Oh. That's how the teachings are imparted. By living it in that way. Perhaps also certain things, if you have very young children, where the mind is just starting up in them, to see if you can keep them aware that words and concepts are never the reality, are not everything. Particularly at a stage when they demand to be fed with words and concepts. When they're at the age where they ask, what's this? What's that for? What's that? And 100 times a day they ask, what's that? Because the mind is absorbing. It needs to do that, it seems. The mind is absorbing words. It wants to know. But the openness also disappears. So when you teach new words or show them this is that, what's this? There's so much you can say about this leaf to a child instead of saying, it's a leaf. As you say it, you put it in the child's hand. You encourage the child to look so that the child does not stop looking the moment he or she has learned the word. Because that's what the mind does. The true looking isn't happening anymore. The word takes the place of the reality. It becomes immediately a screen. And so that to reduce that, when you explain as much as you can, you may not be able to do it all the time, but when you explain something, stay with the reality, and perhaps instead of saying, it's a leaf, you say, we call it a leaf. Because it's not a leaf. This is the illusion that when you attach a word to something, you know what it is. You have no idea what it is, you've just attached a word to it. And that's how people live. They live in this make-believe world that they know. All they have is a collection of labels. And so that doesn't happen to the child, see if, as you teach language and words and concepts, see if you can keep the child in touch with the reality that is more alive, deeper, more mysterious than any concept. And here you can teach so much. You can teach the child to, can you see the colors? And can you see the shadings here? Isn't it beautiful? Can you feel that? Yes, it's called a leaf, but can you feel it? Can you see the colors? And do you know what's happening to it? No. Why is it so beautiful? What's happening to it? It's dying. It's dying. Soon it'll be gone. And then the child may ask another, dying? What's that? Well, I'm not saying what words will come out of your mouth, because you will be present at that moment. But then through this little thing where before you said, that's a leaf, or you might even know what tree it is, so you have attached another label to it. So you can give labels, the mind needs it, but there's far more. And always remind the child, point out that which is beyond the words and concepts. And so that would be wonderful for a child to grow up in that way, so that the mind is not totally possessed by words and concepts. So it remains, the seeing remains, the hearing remains. You hear a bird, and then encourage the child to hear more. To hear, can you hear? Encourage. And children will be receptive to that. Of course, there are many things in our culture that are there to stimulate the mind, to draw them out of their body, to teach a child to feel the body. They are very ready to feel that, make it into a little game. Can you feel the inner body? Can you feel the aliveness that's there? And they can, and they will love it. And then, if possible, reduce the amount of gadgets they play with, because they are all work on the level of abstraction. Computer screens, video game screens, TV, pulling them out of their body, pulling their attention out into some hypnotic trance that gives them a secondary feeling of false aliveness. The video game. So much so that when they stop playing, they don't feel alive anymore. I need some other fix now. This is what the culture is doing to the children. I need another stimulus, another fix, otherwise I will feel dead. And then they look for the next thing, and there's plenty of things. Switch something on, put headphones on. And then you teach the children about the pain body. Children have them too. Some more than others. So when the child goes into a rage, or a screaming fit, or maybe the pain body will take a different form. The child totally withdraws into a corner and doesn't want to talk anymore. At the slightest thing might provoke the pain body. It's the same with adults. And there's then far more pain than you could ever have imagined coming out of that little situation. Some children become screaming monsters for a few minutes. In the middle of it, you can't say anything. But when it's subsided, you can say, what was that? Where did that come from? What did that feel like? Does it feel good? And so you can direct attention within when the pain body is not active. And then say, do you think it may happen again? Shall we see if it happens again? And we can catch it when just it starts. And next time you can see, child starts, oh, is it back? Maybe it has a name. The red big monster back? Oh, can you feel it? Not at that point, whether they say they can feel it or not depends to what extent the pain body has already taken possession of their mind. If they scream at you when you ask, can you feel it? Then it's too late to feel it. Or they throw something. And then again afterwards, you say, what was that? It was back, wasn't it? And then you say, did you notice that mommy or daddy also has that? Do you remember the other day when mommy screamed at you, or mommy dropped something and started shouting and screaming at daddy? threw him out of the house. That was the same thing. Mummy didn't catch it then either. And so how wonderful if a child can grow up in a conscious environment, family, surroundings, that way. Not necessarily totally enlightened, just conscious. Not necessarily a family with continuous and permanent peace throughout. So that is imparting the teaching to children. Present moment, direct their attention, redirect their attention to present moment again and again. This, to looking, to listening, to touching. Away from how you reduce the amount they spend addicted to the screens and electronic things. You'll have to somehow do it and replace it with something more vital, more alive. And they can feel that it's more vital and more alive. Pain bodies have an enormous capacity to pull you in. Even the pain body of a child has that already. When it starts dreaming, it wants a negative reaction from you. That's what the pain body always wants. Give me more pain. And so it requires considerable presence to hold the space. And many parents they're completely flabbergasted when the angel turns into a monster. What is going on here? And then they react. The more unconscious they are, the stronger, the more violent their reaction will be. Their own pain body reacts. They know not what they do. There are several questions. There was just one here and about 6 or 7 others on prayer, the use of prayer, how to use it, whether to use it at all. Now that word can mean many different things. It can mean going to church and saying, "Please God, let me have that job. I promise I'll be good. If you only let me have that job." I practiced that as a child. "Please let there be some peace in my family." Didn't work. So from somebody who went to church every Sunday, then at 12 I must have decided that there was no point anymore. But there are many different kinds of prayer. There are petitionary prayers. You would like something. They may sometimes work, but you never know whether it was the prayer or you would have gotten it anyway. There are more effective ways if you really feel that you need and want something. but be careful, it won't make you happy, but that's another story. If you really feel you want something, you can use affirmation and visualization. And when you get it, enjoy it. Don't look for yourself in it. Don't look to it for deep inner fulfillment or some kind of permanently enhanced sense of self or permanent happiness. Nothing that you achieve can give you that. Knowing that, you can play around with the world of form. And Jesus already explained how to pray for something, and that is when he said, when you pray for something, feel as if you already had it, as if it had already been given. So you're not saying, I want something, because if you say, I want something, it affirms a lack. It says on the other side, the unexpressed side, I don't have it. So when you say, I want it, you're also stating that you don't have it. So you're praying at the same time not to have it. If you affirm and visualize that it is already here, and you feel as if you had it, that the feeling that you want to get from it, you already have that feeling, and that's the truth. Because you're imagining that it's going to give you feelings of peace or happiness, which is always in you already, if you just go inside deep enough. But I don't want to discourage you from playing around in the world of form. So why not try it out? Visualize that it is already yours. You have it, and you feel what you feel as you have it. Thank you for giving me that. It's beautiful, whatever it may be. The house, you're already in it, feels good. Thank you. It's nice to have that house. Thanks. Yeah. It's already there. It's more likely to manifest in that way. And then you move in, and you go from there. Then you sit there. You feel, oh great, I've got it. And then the old mind patterns come up in the new house. Then there are other prayers that are used, they're all in different religions, and they can be called pointers. They are more advanced prayers. They are pointers to a particular state. It's not that uttering those words produces magically the state. What matters when you utter certain words or prayers, and most of them are short, is really the stillness that comes after that. Buddhism, for example, has the metta meditation, which is a kind of prayer, which starts with, I believe, may everybody on this planet be well and happy. And then after you've uttered those words, there's a stillness. And then it says, may everybody in this country be well and happy. Metta means loving kindness, and then there's a stillness. May every being in this city be well and happy. Stillness. May everybody in this house be well and happy. May I be well and happy. And it takes you into stillness. And the being of well and happy is already there in the stillness. It's there, it spreads. You could become still, it would spread anyway, even without the words. Because whatever state of consciousness you are in affects the totality, and in turn is the totality manifesting through you. Oh, we have the beautiful Christian prayer by Saint Francis, I believe. Let me be an instrument of thy peace. Where there is hatred, let me sow love, and so on. Where there's injury, pardon, and so on. And those prayers are openings. They open a door, and they take you into stillness, and they are beautiful. Most prayers operate still on the level of duality. Even when you say, "Let me be an instrument of thy peace," you are still using the language of duality. There's me, and thy, presumably, is God. There is me, and there's God. So God is perceived still as something or someone separate from me. Nevertheless, it's a beautiful prayer. And if stillness follows the prayer, in the stillness you have transcended duality. There is, some of you are familiar with the Course in Miracles. Course in Miracles, many of those lessons are a kind of prayer. And most of the lessons in it operate on the level of duality, speaking of God as He and addressing God as something or someone outside of you. Course in Miracles meets you where you are on the level of duality, but as you reach the end of the Course, without you noticing it, the lessons become more non-dualistic, and in the end, you end up in stillness. And it says the use for words is almost over now. It's towards the end of the Course. So it meets you where you are and takes you by the hand. It only works if you can get hold, if Christian terminology is appealing to you. To some it is not, and then there are many other ways. Don't use something that you don't like, the form of which you don't like. So most prayers are dualistic, and then you can have, although the metta prayer in Buddhism is may all beings be well and happy, is fine. There's no duality really there, although you're still saying there are many beings. Ultimately there's only oneness. But what can you do? You're using language.